Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Religious Trauma Counseling YouTube channel. I'm Robert Espaiu. I'm a former priest and religious monastic. I have a lot of experience living in closed religious communities and understand how hard it can be to leave a closed religious community or to make big changes in your life emotionally, or to change your religious perspective. I'm also a licensed therapist with over 30 years of experience, and I've worked a lot with religious trauma internationally for the last 10 years. So today I really want to talk for a few minutes about something important, which is the subject of what is dissociation and how is it related to religious trauma. So a lot of us may have heard this term before, dissociation. So dissociation is a big word for spacing out. So it's important to talk about this because what's really unique to religious trauma is this experience called depersonalization, which there really isn't a lot written on this. It's a subject that's a little hard to understand, but dissociation is important because there are studies that show that a lot of people that have PTSD are misdiagnosed with ADD or ADHD because they're both issues of attention, dissociation, and ADD. So if someone has PTSD, they can be misdiagnosed as having ADD when really they're dissociating a lot. So dissociation is a big word for spacing out. Dissociation is often used by therapists or counselors to refer to a person who's unable to really stay present with their emotions. And dissociation can become a very complex defense mechanism in a person, as it evolves through living with years of chronic painful experiences. So, for example, if someone is a child and they're growing up with a very, very angry mother, maybe she's really rageful, and maybe she would rage about something every single day, then in that first 10 years of the child's life, he has to try to figure out ways to avoid those rages. Yet sometimes he's going to be in the pathway of those rages. So a lot of times when kids are with a rageful parent, they try to look away from that parent. They try to tune out with that parent. They're terrified and they try to go some other place in their mind or their imagination with that parent. They try not to be present to hear the screaming and the yelling and the shaming, and they tune out. And this is one way in which we begin to be taught by our families to dissociate. So, dissociation usually happens when we are really terrified. There's really different levels of dissociation. It's kind of a spectrum. There's, you know, in one way, if you come home and you binge watch Game of Thrones for the weekend, that's a kind of dissociation. You may be doing it because you had a difficult week of work and you kind of want to just check out and not be with your feelings. That's kind of a normal way we all sort of dissociate. Some people find other ways to check out. They watch sports a lot. Some people just play a lot of sports. Some people go a little further in the dissociative line and they drink alcohol. And some people smoke weed. And some people do even more drugs. And some people get addictions or process addictions. And then you can go further out on the level there beyond addictions to, borderline personality disorder or, in the really extreme sense, dissociative identity disorder. So there's different levels of dissociation. But basically, it's an unconscious defense mechanism. That means it happens the majority of the time without being conscious of it or having thoughtful choice. And this may seem confusing to us, but it can be made much more experientially clear to us through understanding the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is interesting because it is a non critical, objective state of self observation, and when one learns mindfulness, what they're really learning to do is how to observe themselves without judging or condemning what they're observing. So they're observing themselves as if, as one, without any negative or positive evaluations about what they're observing. And in the state of mindfulness, one is completely consciously aware of what one's observing. One's so aware that concentration is present in order to maintain their awareness. Dissociation, by contrast, is habitually trying at some level to kind of space out and forget what's really going on with oneself. Seems kind of easy. I mean, often when we're driving in a car, we're listening to music, maybe we're fantasizing we're a musician, we're stuck in traffic. We may fantasize with the music and just keep doing that until we get home. So, as I said, there's a lot of varying degrees of dissociation. So, anyone who has a trauma struggles with some level of dissociation. However, the extreme end of this, as I said, is something called a dissociative disorder or something called dissociative identity disorder, where we start to separate and wall off experiences in our consciousness and even can create parts of ourselves to help wall off sections of our consciousness. So, someone who has a dissociative disorder will sometimes experience what's called dissociative amnesia. Dissociative amnesia refers to periods of memory loss, like I'm washing the dishes and I'm like, whoa, you know, I don't remember the last couple of hours at all. That's really strange, right? So, this is sometimes experienced as time loss, right? In other words, later this evening, you're having dinner and suddenly you're like, I don't remember how I got here or what I did before dinner. So it's kind of like a blackout, but without drugs or alcohol. And there are three symptoms related to dissociative amnesia. Okay. So this is a more of an extreme end of dissociation. And depending on the level of trauma, you may relate to this. There's what we call localized, which is where we have a memory loss and it sort of affects specific areas of our thinking or part of our life. So we may not remember like all of our childhood at all. We don't remember anything. Or we don't remember anything about a certain coworker. We don't remember anything about our mom at all, but we remember a lot about our dad. Often memory loss kind of focuses on something specific. So there's something else called generalized dissociative amnesia, which is that memory loss kind of affects our a major part of our life, and it's can be across a lot of our life. We say we don't have a good memory, we don't remember a lot of things, but generalized amnesia usually is I don't remember my name, I don't remember my job, I don't remember my family, I don't remember my friends. And then there's something called dissociative fugue. So generalized amnesia is really when we think about amnesia like in a movie, it's like that. But a dissociative fugue happens a lot to people with PTSD and sometimes people with religious trauma, which is when a person has sort of this feeling where they feel like they have another part of themselves that thinks in a different way, almost like an actor. You know, like how an actor kind of thinks about a part that they're playing and kind of gives life to it and really sort of lives in it. Um, sometimes people will go through such a terrible traumatic experience that they don't want to be there during that experience. Somebody, when they were a little boy, had a grandfather, and everybody loved that grandfather. He was well respected in the community. He was well loved by everybody. But every Sunday, nobody knew that grandpa was having sex with his grandson, and the grandson loved his grandfather too. He loved him so much that he couldn't deal with the pain of this experience. It was too horrifying, terrifying, scary, confusing. And what he would do is he would imagine he was somewhere else playing and being someone else and not being there being him. And he would imagine that so strongly that he would be that character. He would be that in that place playing and pretending he was Batman in a Batmobile and not there with grandpa. So in a dissociative fugue, this happens where we start to check out and really go someplace else. We can actually believe we are that person or we are in that place and we're not where we are. Okay. So dissociative amnesia is different than the kind of amnesia caused by medical issues like strokes or brain injuries. So we want to differentiate that. And if you really believe that you're having dissociative amnesia in some way, you should definitely check out with your therapist and your doctor both. Okay. So most cases of dissociative amnesia that people will have are relatively short. Unless you have PTSD, it can become something that's a big deal. So, want to talk a little bit about dissociation because, on a basic level, if you are somebody that has grown up in a religious group and you grew up with a lot of fear, a lot of terror, you might have been told by people around you that what you feel really didn't matter, or what you feel could lead to sin. And in some way, you might kind of have found a way of checking out from your emotions, not trusting in your emotions, and kind of tuning out even when people ask you about your emotions. So dissociation can be something that kind of both protects us and also keeps us very confused and not really understanding what's going on. So this is an important aspect of religious trauma that we wanted to make everybody aware of. And want to thank you very much for tuning into this video. We hope this has been helpful to you in some way. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our video. It'll be really helpful to everybody who is needing help for religious trauma. And check out our website, religiostraumacounseling.com. Thank you so much.